Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? You can use the YouTube chat to ask questions. Right, we're just going to wait a little bit so that people can join in. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. How's everyone doing? And if you have any questions, you can write in YouTube chat. And also go ahead and introduce yourself. Where are you logging in from, or where are you located? And how did you hear about this live stream? So go ahead and introduce yourself in the live chat. So 0 Point has a question: how can an iOS developer start learning backend development? How can we start like with much language or server? Well, iOS developer, if you want to learn backend development, which is using Vapor, you can actually, or backend development, I think one of those things you can use is Vapor. Vapor is a framework that is built using Swift, and basically it's running Swift on the server. So, you can use Vapor to do that. If you want to, go a different route for learning backend development, I personally actually like Express.js, but it's in JavaScript. But I enjoy it. I like it. It's nice and simple. And there are an infinite number of options if you want to go and learn backend development. And I actually do recommend developers to learn backend development. All right. All right. So we're going to wait a few more minutes. We're going to be talking about SwiftData. All right. Let me actually see if I can pull up the page for SwiftData. Yeah. So we'll be talking about SwiftData, and we'll be creating like a really simple setup for SwiftData application. All right. And so I'll talk about SwiftData, how to set it up, what kind of architecture I use for SwiftData, and uh, and then I'll talk about other things. We have a question from Yanni, which is, what is the best architecture pattern for project that uses SwiftData? I actually published a brand new article a couple of weeks ago. Here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and link that to you. It is this article is actually for SwiftData architecture, as you can see. So it covers it's a decent sized long article, but it covers a lot of stuff about SwiftData. So you can actually use the techniques discussed in that article to model your SwiftData application. All right. Okay. I think everyone is here. We'll just wait for a few more minutes if that's okay. Maybe 1 or 2 minutes. If you're just joining in, go ahead and in the chat introduce yourself. Where are you located? How did you hear about this live stream? And I try to do these live stream. I try my best to do it every week, but it's kind of hard to do every week. But I try my best to do it. I think last week we had a uh, Ask Me Anything AMA session. That was actually really good. A lot of people showed up, so thanks for coming for that. So that was really good. And probably in the future, I'll do on introduction to Vapor, introduction to testing, architecture, maybe navigation, validation, all of these different things. There's so many topics that can be covered, even machine learning. All right. So we'll do that. We'll do all of these small live stream like basic fundamentals, so you have some idea of what these things are. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Once again, if you're just joining in, go ahead in the YouTube chat, go ahead and introduce yourself. Where are you logging in from? Where are you located? And how did you hear about this live stream? So I'm going to start with what my name is. My name is Mohammad Azam, and this is me. This is my website, azamsharp.com. I'm going to share this link on my chat, on the chat, YouTube chat. And I work as a coding bootcamp instructor. That's my day job, where I teach web development, full stack web development, and also machine learning using Python. All right. But I also do, as you can see, I also do iOS development. And I have a lot of courses that I host on azamsharp.school. So if you haven't visited azamsharp.school, I suggest you do that, because I think it might be like one of the biggest websites for iOS development videos. I mean, there are close to 190 plus, maybe even 200 hours of content at Azam Sharp School. And I keep publishing new courses. I think this is a new course that I just published, deploying machine learning models using Vapor and CodeML. So that's a brand new course I just published, I think last week. It's a really good course. And that will teach you machine learning with Python, scikit-learn, and then you integrate that model into your Vapor application. So it's a really good course. All right. All right, so we have a couple of questions. How can iOS developer move into AI? Any suggestions? Well, if you want to move into machine learning, 0 point, and if you want to stay, well, you're lucky, because I actually have some courses over here that can definitely help you. This is a machine learning course. This is using CreateML, so I'm just going to copy the address. But I would say if you want to learn into AI, the training part, you should probably use Python to do that, which is the brand new course that I just published, this one. So you should probably look into this course, because this is really the latest course. It just got published last week. So you should probably look into that one. All right. Because that will go into, and Python is a leading language for machine learning. Swift doesn't even come close. Doesn't even come close. You can do some basic stuff with Swift, but trust me, when it's serious business, you have to use Python. All right. Apart from that, the courses, if you go on the workshops, you can also see workshops. So what I'm going to present today on this live stream, it's just a very small part of the workshop that I'm presenting tomorrow. Tomorrow is the actual workshop on SwiftData. And you can see tomorrow we'll be covering, that's a paid workshop, by the way, and it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., 3-hour workshop. And I'll be covering like relationships and testing and CloudKit integration. So that is going to be like a 3-hour, very detailed workshop. All right. So all the links are over there in the chat. You can definitely check it out. So let's start with this, a really basic introduction to SwiftData. SwiftData was announced probably 2023 or something, and it's basically a replacement for core data. So anything that you do on device database, SwiftData is a replacement for core data. And you can even think of it like SwiftData is more of like a wrapper on top of core data, or sugar coating on top of core data, because a lot of things that you do in core data, which are a little bit harder, they're kind of like wrapped up in this sugar, which is known as SwiftData. All right. So let's go ahead and get started now. keep in mind that this is going to be a very basic introduction. Like if you have never used SwiftData before, this will be great. But if you want a more in-depth 3-hour hands-on training, then you'll have to go and check out the SwiftData Fundamental Workshop, which is tomorrow, by the way. All right. So you'll be able to attend that. All right. All right. Let me go back over here. Okay. So I've created this application, and let me actually make the font a little bit larger. There we go. So CF is asking, do you have a course going through CloudKit share? For example, create a build group and share with someone. So currently, SwiftData does not really support CloudKit sharing. So right now, it only supports private databases. There are some ways that you can do that with. I don't have the CloudKit thing. No, I don't have the CloudKit course on that part, and SwiftData doesn't support that also. All right. Okay. So when we are working with SwiftData, and what we're going to be doing, we're going to be creating a budget application. All right. Budget application means that you can tackle your budget, meaning you can create your budgets for your vacation, for your trips, and so on. So when we're creating budget application, we should have models that describe the budget, right? So what I'm going to do first, just with starting with SwiftData, and that's the first thing you should probably do, is when you're starting with SwiftData, you should start with adding your models that what do you want to persist in the database. So I'm going to go ahead and say budget. So here you can see that I've created a file. Hopefully the font size is okay, right? Everyone can see the font. You should be able to see the font. It's pretty big. Hopefully everyone can see it. All right. So when we're creating a budget application will allow us to save a budget. All right. A budget for vacation, a budget for a trip to Mexico, a budget for groceries, a budget for, you get the idea, right? So what we will start with is importing SwiftData, and we will create a budget as a class. Okay, so the first thing you will note over here is that why am I using a class? Why not a struct? Well, let's start with a struct. Maybe you want to use a struct. That's fine. Let's use a struct and you'll see what happens. All right. So we got the budget and we'll have the name. A budget will have a name and a budget will have some sort of a limit. Limit simply means, well, my budget for groceries is $500 or my trip to Mexico will be $2,500, so on. And by the way, if anyone has any question, you can use YouTube chat. You can already see some people are asking questions. That's great. Now, currently, when you see this, it's just a budget struct, a struct, value type, nothing going on, right? So if I want to persist this in SQLite database, because that is the default database when you're using SwiftData, and that is the default database when you're using core data also. So I have to create, or I have to use this model macro. See that? So right over here, I'm putting a model macro. So that is the macro that is going to tell Swift that, hey, I need to persist this budget somewhere. And that somewhere, the data store, by default is SQLite database. All right, so I can actually write it over here if you want. By default, all data for SwiftData and core data is stored in SQLite database. So that's by default. That's like the default store that where everything gets stored. SQLite is a relational database, by the way, so it gets stored over there. All right. Okay. Well, there's the problem. You can see right here, it is actually telling you that there is a issue. And basically what the issue is saying is that you cannot really use a model macro on a struct. All right. So we cannot have this struct over here. The model macro can only be used on classes. So I'm going to change this to class. The other thing that you can see is basically it's telling us that these things have to be initialized. They should have some values, the name and the limit. So what I usually do is I just create them as a var and then create the initializer. That's the easiest way to fix that issue. All right. So now you can see that we have created a budget model. It is decorated with the model macro, which says that this budget will be persisted in the database. Which database? Well, by default, it is going to be SQLite database. You can create your own stores, like if you want to save it in JSON file, you can do that. It's a little bit hard to do, but you can create custom stores. But by default, it uses SQLite database. All right. Okay. So now we have created the budget, which is great. The next thing we want to do is, well, how do we save it? How do we save the budget? Let's go to our content view. All right. Now, when we look at the content view, it's just, the basic default SwiftUI view. Nothing really going on over here. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can add a budget, or we can persist the budget. So how do we do this? Well, we create some sort of a form probably. We create some fields to hold the value for the name of the budget and also the limit for the budget, right? So we'll say limit, and it can be like double. And now we can use text field. So the user interface is kind of up to you, whatever you want to use. So I'm just using some basic SwiftUI over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and say text field. And again, it's completely up to you. If you want to use whatever, that is perfectly fine. And I'm going to use limit, formatter. I don't think we need a formatter over here, but we may need a format in number maybe. Okay. And I'm just, creating this interface like really quickly because interface is not important. You can create it on your own. All right. So there we go. Hopefully everyone can see the interface. It's pretty basic stuff. All right. Any questions at this point? If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the YouTube chat, by the way. And again, this is a very basic introduction. All right. So probably if you have never seen or never used SwiftData, I think this will definitely going to help you. All right. Okay, so now the interesting question is, well, how do we persist this? How do we save this information in the database? Now, when we create this, when we press the button, this is where we want to persist the information in the database. Save the data or save the budget to the database. All right. Now, a lot of people, when they try to save this information, they already are thinking about, I need to create a view model. I need to create separate layers. I need to move these things out. I need to move the logic. You don't have to do any of that stuff when you're using SwiftData. Actually, I'm going to go even one step further. I'm going to say that if you are using the view model MVVM approach with SwiftData, you are going to run into a lot of problems because SwiftData is not really designed for adding more layer on top of other layers. Okay, and that's a very important point to consider. If you have any logic, like if you actually have any domain logic, you will put that logic right inside the model itself. All right? That's it. Simple. Keep things simple. And I think one of the things that I am constantly seeing definitely in the iOS community is they don't like simple stuff. They want to wrap everything with 30 different layers just so that they can say, oh, well, it was very complicated. And And in reality, things can be very simple. It's actually much harder to make things simple than to make things complicated, right? Okay, so how do we persist this information? How do we save the data into the database? Well, first thing first, we'll go ahead and create the budget. We already have the budget, the budget model that we created. So we can pass that information. I can pass in over here name, and probably I can pass in the limit. Now the limit over here itself is null or optional, so I can't really pass it like that. I have to go ahead and make sure that it is, it is correct and it is basically unwrapped. The other thing I can add is the button itself. I can go ahead and say, I can create like a validation, private var is form valid, Boolean, and the validation is simply going to check that if the name is not empty, and it's also going to check if the limit, somebody has entered something in the limit. So I'm just going to quickly do that. Again, the validation is up to you, whatever you want to do it. Limit, I'm just going to unwrap it. If I'm failing to unwrap, I'll just return false. And over here, I'll return that if the name is not empty and limit is greater than 0. So again, it's completely up to you however you want to validate. All right. And the button will only be available if it is not disabled. All right. Or if the form is valid, basically, in other words. All right. So let me go ahead and see what it does now right now. And I'm just looking for the preview to update. Hopefully it will update eventually. Here we go. So you can see the preview, and right over here, the save button. You can see that the save button is now disabled because the form itself is not valid. So I'm going to go ahead and type something. I'm going to say maybe I want to create a budget for groceries. I'm going to type groceries. And the limit. Well, limit is ABC. Well, that's not really a good limit, right? Even though I'm entering ABC over there, it's not a number. So I have to enter a number. As soon as I enter a number, then you can see the save button is enabled. If I enter a negative number, then the save button is not enabled. Obviously, you can even go further and check that, oh, the number has to be greater than 100 and number has to be greater than this and that. That's up to you. You can definitely do that. All right. So if I am entering 500 or whatever, then I can press the save button. Okay. Now over here inside the actual save button, I can now uncomment that and I can just use this unwrapping. And the reason that I'm forcefully unwrapping that is that the button will not really be enabled anyways. So the only way for the button to be enabled is if you actually have a limit and the limit is not null, because we have already provided that check on the top. If you want to do another check over here, I guess that's fine, but I mean, you don't really need it because it's not like 10,000 lines of code that you have to go through to figure out the complexity. It's literally like 10 lines of code. All right. Everyone doing okay? Can you type something in the chat so I can actually see that the chat is even working or not? Because I haven't really seen any action in the chat. So go ahead and write something like if you're following everything right now. I'll wait for you a little bit. If you can hear me properly or if you're following along, you can definitely write something in the chat. All right. Can I show budget model struct? So this is what the budget model kind of looks like. Do you offer one-on-one at all? I can definitely take a look at one-on-one. I can definitely do that. And that is, I'll have to double check my schedule probably, and I'll probably contact you for one-on-one. Um, it won't be like a deep dive in one-on-ones, but it will be more likely like architectural questions and these kind of things. All right. Then we have a question. My best friend, can you prepare group Discord page, your YouTube channel? I want to join you. Well, actually, I do have a channel on Slack. Let me give you a link for that. It is for Azam Sharp members or Azam Sharp School members. Let me see if I can actually grab that URL for you. Um, it's mostly for, I just use it for announcements. I mean, you can definitely ask questions. If I can find how to get a link for that. It's like very hard to find these links. Like, how do I even find the link? Uh, Jeez, it's very hard for me to. Just looking like, how do you invite people to this channel? Is there an invite button? Open channel details, topic enabled. Wow, I actually don't know how to use Slack. All right, I'll have to find it because it's so weird. I have no idea how to actually do that. I'm looking at the channel and I can't really find it how to share it. All right. Um, okay, so you do get a link. Let me actually, man, this is okay. Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna try to find the link for you. There is a Azam Sharp YouTube channel that you can actually go and join. It's, as I mentioned, it's mostly for announcements, but it's open. I mean, people can do the announcement, or people can do anything they want. I mean, they can ask questions and stuff. Let me see if I can. Okay, might be this one. Azam Sharp Slack channel. See if that works. I guess that should be hopefully the link. All right. Okay, so looks like we're moving forward. Okay, so let's move forward. So let's go to the content view. So at this point, the budget object is created, but we haven't really saved the budget. It's just an object, right? It's just an object that is created. So the next part would be to actually save it to the database. And this is where things get interesting, like, okay, how do we save it to the database? David is saying, hello, David, how are you doing? You're joining the live stream for SwiftData Fundamentals, all right? So in order to save it, what we need to do is, and this is just for the previews, we need to inject something called a model container. And you can see the model container doesn't really show up right now. And the reason it doesn't show up is I need to import SwiftData. So let's go ahead and import SwiftData. And now use the model container. Model container. The model container is kind of like, you can think of it, I guess you can think of it as a container that contains the context, and it kind of manages the life cycles, the changes of the different models which are in your application. All right. So we're going to go ahead and add the model container. The only thing that we right now have is the budget. So we're just going to add that this model container will have one model called budget. All right. And the other thing that we're going to say is, where is that? That's kind of weird. It's not coming up. Let me actually type it again. Sometimes it doesn't come up. Okay, here we go. So model is for budget.self in memory true. Okay, so this is kind of interesting, in memory, right? In memory true simply means that when we are working with previews, because I'm inside the preview, the model container will save the model, save the data in the memory, so not in an actual SQLite file. And the reason I'm doing that is that because I am using previews. Now I can use SQLite database in previews and it will still work, but Right now, I am just using preview, so whenever my preview refreshes, all my data will be gone. And that's fine. I mean, it's just previews, right? So we're just quickly checking stuff out and all those things. In your actual application, do not set this to in-memory true, because this means that when you start the application again, everything will be gone. So make sure that you don't do that. Once we have the model container, which is a requirement for SwiftData, we can access it. Access model context from environment. And the way that you access it is using the environment key, which is called the model context. Private var, I can just call it context. So this model context, you can kind of think of it like the NS manage object context, all right? And it tracks different models, which are the budget model, and if you have other models, so it tracks everything. It will track how many models, how much data has been changed. If some models are marked for deletion, it's gonna track that also. So it's tracking kind of like the entire models in your application that you have specified right there. So right now we only have one, but obviously you can have many different models you can track. Once we have access to the context, then we can actually use it to insert the model. See that? There is an insert, and then you simply say budget, and that's it. You're done. It's simple as that. Isn't that crazy that it becomes so simple as this? That's pretty cool. I think it's very simple. Now, we have to be a little bit careful over here. This, you can see over here, insert, right? But if you also check out this function, there's also a save function. Insert or save? Which one should we use? Well, they're a little bit different. The insert is going to insert your data, which in this case is budget, into the database, which is in memory right now, but it can be actual database. And insert is going to insert it not immediately, but it will insert it when some sort of event happens. So sometimes those events can be when you transition to a new screen. Sometimes those events can be when you take your application to the background and then foreground. So those kind of things. I encourage you to use insert in most cases, unless you want to call save explicitly. So insert is perfectly fine. Okay. Any questions? And this is it. I mean, this is literally the code you need to insert an object into the database, or insert a model, a budget into the database. I mean, some people will, add so much complexity, like, okay, we need a repository layer, we need a view model to call the repository, and the repository will call the feature, and the feature will call. Oh no! I mean, come on. That's not how SwiftData has been designed. All you're doing is just adding more layers, and they don't really provide any benefit, right? All right, any questions? Now, if I run this application right now, it will insert into the database. Let me actually go ahead and run this. But we're not fetching it. We're not really displaying the data on the screen. So even though it may be inserting something into the database, we may not see it on the screen because we're not really displaying anything on the screen. Okay? But you can still find out that if something is inserted or not. All right? Let me actually see what is going on with this. Okay, there we go. It's actually running. There we go. Now, one thing to note over here, which is a big issue, is I'm not using the previews. I mean, you can use the previews, that's perfectly fine. But I'm using a simulator. See that? This simulator, I just launched that simulator. Now, this container that you have set up is only for the preview. So if you run your actual application on a simulator on your device, you don't have this. You don't have the model container. So make sure that you go to your actual app file and insert that over here, this part. And also, no, not in memory. This is the real deal. So make sure that you remove that. All right. Okay. So right now we are able to insert something to the database, but we're not able to fetch it. We're not able to display it. Can we even, can we even say that it is actually inserted into the database? That's a good question. Let's go ahead and see if I can show you how you can debug SwiftData. So I'm going to say debug core data. And you can definitely check out this article. It's on use your loaf. This is for debug core data. And you might say, hold on a second, why are we talking about debugging core data? Because behind the scenes, SwiftData is actually using core data. All right. So if we can debug core data, we should be able to debug SwiftData. And you can see over here, we have these launch arguments. -com apple core data SQL debug true. Okay, so let's add that in our Xcode. And let's see where do we have to add. So this is just launch arguments. Okay, so we'll go probably over here in the edit scheme. And arguments are passed on launch, and I'll just copy that over here. All right, there are some other arguments that you can definitely check out, but that's the only argument I'm going to add, which is the first one, this one. Now, having added that argument, let's go ahead and run this. Okay. If you look at your output window, look at that. Look at all this stuff. This is what happens when you are adding that argument. All right. When you're adding that particular argument, this is what's going on. And we can see there's a lot of text over here, a lot of transactions going on. And let me go ahead and add something. I'm going to go ahead and add a budget for groceries. And I'm going to also add a limit, let's say 500, and I'm going to say save. Okay. So I don't see anything going on, which is kind of weird. Did I mess something up? Let's see. I was actually wondering that I should be able to see like an insert or something. Oh, let me see. Probably it didn't do it because the event doesn't happen right now. If I go back, okay, there we go. All right. So see, when we were using the context.save, it didn't immediately executed the insert statement because it was waiting for certain events to happen. And as soon as I send my application to the background, then it was like, okay, maybe I should save the context. And it did save the context. If you see closely right there, see that insert into the budgets table? So it is firing an insert, and it is persisting the information into the insert into the budgets table. All right, so it is actually doing that. So this kind of proves that it is executing SQL and inserting data into the database. Well, that's great, but how do we display the information? I mean, we want to see our budgets on the screen, right? I mean, that's the whole point. So how do we fetch and display information from, from the budgets table in the database on the screen? Well, for that, we will use fetch information or fetch budgets from database. We will use something called a query property wrapper. And we'll just call it budgets, and budget will initialize with empty array. I don't think you have to initialize it with empty array, but I always do. You can make it nullable if you want to, but that's fine. So this property wrapper, which is query property wrapper, is only available inside the view. The view actually in SwiftUI is more like a view model already, so that's why we're not really creating multiple view models and so on. So you can see we're using the query property wrapper over here, and this is going to allow us to fetch. Now, it is going to fetch when we actually use budgets in our body. So currently I'm not even using the budgets, right? So let me go ahead and say, if I go over here and I say budgets, budget in, and then just go ahead and display the budget dot name, and I think we can also probably display something else. Let's go ahead and embed something. Let's go ahead and display budget dot what is that, the limit, and format will be currency and US dollar. And obviously you can, you can pass in the correct one over here, but I'm just going to use that. Okay, there we go. And that's literally all you need to do. You have the query property wrapper, and then I'm just using a list to display it. And that's it. All right. Let me go ahead and run this now. Now, keeping in mind that we did insert something in the when we ran previously, right? And there we go. You see that? It's actually already getting displayed, the groceries. Okay, let's go ahead and add something over here. I have a Mexico trip coming up, so I'm just going to say Mexico trip. And the limit is, let's say, 2,500. Save. And look at that. Isn't that cool that when you insert something in the database, and by the way, this is running in the simulator, so it is using the actual database. So when you run something, in the simulator, it's actually saving to the actual SQLite database. And as soon as I insert something using the context.insert, which is this one, the query property wrapper is like, oh, context got changed. I have to refresh myself. I have to fetch the new stuff. I need to re-render, or I need to fetch all the stuff. And that's what it is doing. So behind the scene, query property wrapper is kind of doing what the NSFetch results controller was doing in core data, if you remember that, right? So behind the scene, it is doing similar work. And I urge you to use query macro. Is it macro or property wrapper? I always get confused. Okay, query macro. I urge you to, or I encourage you to use query macro, because it is, well, first of all, it's really easy to use, right? You can see it's like few lines of code we were able to do that. And also, it's very highly optimized by Apple, especially if you are using iCloud integration and all that stuff. It's optimized instead of you writing your own layers and all that stuff. So instead of doing that, you should probably use a query property wrapper. All right. Any questions at this point? Yeah, you can write your questions over there, and you can hopefully see that how simple it is to, to use these things. All right. Will this stream be available on your YouTube later? Yes. So the stream it will be available on YouTube. Yes, it will be available. I think if you click on live, you should be able to see all the streams. So all the streams should be available. All right. Any questions I can answer now? So you can see that how easy it is to use SwiftData, and you don't really have to create like multiple layers and layers and layers of information. You can just use what Apple is actually providing you to use. Just keep things simple, and everything will just work as expected. The moment that you make things complicated just to make it complicated, then it will not work. Okay, so now the next question. Next question is, how do we create relationships in SwiftData and perform insert deletes? That's a great question. And keep in mind, this is a very basic, basic live stream. I am hosting tomorrow a much detailed live stream or a much detailed, let me actually show it over here, a workshop. So the relationships part, all of that we will be covering in a 3-hour live stream tomorrow. Keep in mind that is a paid live stream. So let me actually show you over here. This is the tomorrow live stream. It's going to be, we're going to be covering Swift data fundamentals, relationships, testing. We'll cover unit testing also. Swift data workshop, May 16, which is I think tomorrow. So here is the link for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to provide you with a coupon, 30% off coupon that you can actually use that. So let me go ahead and say 30% off coupon for workshop. These are limited coupons, so use it quickly if you want to. But yeah, tomorrow I'll be going into a 3-hour workshop. As you can see, it's going to be on Swift data fundamentals. We're going to cover architecture, we're going to cover relationships because each budget can have expenses. We're going to cover testing, like how do you unit test these things, right? Where do you put the logic? We're going to cover that. CloudKit integration. We are also going to cover CloudKit integration, which means that you can use it on multiple devices. Now, CloudKit integration, you will learn all the different challenges that, okay, what happens if, what happens if I am performing CloudKit deletion for expenses and relationships. So all of those different things we're going to be covering tomorrow in this workshop. So there's a link to the workshop right there in the YouTube chat, and I also added a 30% coupon, so you can save some 30% if you just use the coupon code community. All right, so hopefully you will come to the workshop. You will get the recording of the workshop. Obviously, you will get the GitHub, like the code, all the code you will gonna get for workshop, and then it's 3 hours long. I mean, that's 3 hours is a lot of time to go into different details. All right. And I keep running these workshops like most other workshops. If you want to learn server-side Swift and all that, we will do that later on. But you can definitely check out these workshops. All right. So over here also the same thing. Swift Data Workshop is tomorrow. So definitely check it out. The coupon code, I think I've already added. I don't think I can write it over here, but the coupon code, just check out the coupon code is community. All right. I don't know. Use the coupon code. I think it's called community. Oh, I'm not even gonna write it because I'm gonna mess up the spelling. All right. So, but the coupon code is community is right there in the description, and it is going to give you 30% off. All right. Any other questions that I can answer? Hopefully you have enjoyed this live stream, and we'll do these live stream more and more because I actually really like to do these live stream and talk to all of you. So any other question before we start wrapping up? Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask in the YouTube chat. All right, let me. Can you create codes on live activities? Live activities, yeah, that is definitely on my list. I just I just have to find the time to create the course on live activities. But that is definitely on my list, live activities. and but it might take some time because now next month WWDC is coming next month, so let's see what they announce over there and what courses I have to go and update. So it really depends, on the time because I just released a brand new course um, on the machine learning course, which is this one. So this was just released, I think, last week. And one of the other things which most people don't know about Azam School is apart from the courses and the workshops, you also have access to this pro member only content. Like these are, let me actually see if I can go there. There we go. Now, these are just individual videos, but they are like, 15, 20 minutes long, very, very comprehensive videos. I think very, very detailed. You get the code and you get everything. And so these are individual videos. And you can see you might love these ones like networking client, global toast messages, debounce, and I just published this one, I think, yesterday. Fix slow iOS apps, find bottlenecks, and in next one coming up will be on building your own caching layer. So all of these things are very, very important. Uh, Bernhard, Thorsten Bernhard, all creates was very well explained. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You make it look so easy. Are you going to be at WWDC? Unfortunately, no, I will not be at WWDC. I probably should plan better next year because it looks like there are a lot of events going on during WWDC, and I'm sure it will be fun to attend those things. All right. So probably next year I will definitely try, but this year no, I will not be at WWDC. All right. Any other questions? All right. Let's see over here. Once again, the coupon code is right there. It is community. If you use the coupon code community, you will be able to save 30% on the workshop. This workshop is tomorrow. It is 3 hours long. It's going to be an amazing workshop. So if you have time, definitely join in. Relationships, testing, CloudKit integration, a lot more stuff. All right. So hopefully you have enjoyed it today. Thank you so much. Um, do you have some intro to fetching data from API? How do you get different endpoint? I think I created a video on how to fetch data from an API. So I don't know where that video is. I wonder if I posted it on Twitter or something. I think I recently did. Let me see. SwiftData, import data, sharp. Import SwiftData API maybe. API plus offline data. Yeah, I'm not sure where that video is. I know that I created something where you're getting all the stuff. I wonder if it's over here in courses somewhere. Let me see. Swift data sheets, Swift bounce. I don't see it over here. I know, but I created the video where you are actually getting the data. Probably it will be on the YouTube channel somewhere. So let me see if I can find that. But you will be able to find it. I think it will be on some YouTube channel. I mean, my YouTube channel. I just don't remember the name. Debounce, Azam Sharp, SwiftData, Workshop, Programmatic, Diameter Filtering, Decoding and Persisting Data. Maybe it's this one. Let me see. Grab link. Okay. Let me see if this is the one. I think it's this one. Yeah, it should be this one. So let me give you the link for that. It might be this one. So I'm going to just copy that. So this is where in SwiftData you get the stuff from an API and then you insert it insert it using SwiftData. So that might be the one. Grocery shop. Okay, I think I did that in grocery shop. Yeah, I may. It's just hard to remember all these videos, but I may have done that in grocery shop. But yeah, it will be similar to that. All right. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining, and hopefully you can join me in this workshop tomorrow. Again, the coupon code is community, and thank you so much. And I'll see you next time.